It's another crazy day in the world of Magic the Gathering. Lord of the Rings spoilers are popping out and they are looking absolutely insane. We've got crazy promos to look at, some little secrets about the pre-release to talk about as well. Today is pure good times.
Magic. I am a wizard. History. I'm an old wizard. The Magic Historian. My bones hurt.
Greetings, owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles, my friends. I hope the day finds you well because we have gathered for another glorious installment of Mega Magic News. We're going to take a look at some awesome promos, but before we do that, and spoilers as well, not just promos, we got a bunch of cards to look at, but I got some other details as well that I want to go over because today is the hyped about Lord of the Ring video day. The next video is going to be bad times about the Lord of the Rings. People are pretty upset about a number of different items, but for today, we put that aside and we dive into pure goodness. So we're going to start by talking about the pre-release. Wizards of the Coast is going to have a special die in the kits that you can get. 1 out of every 10 kits will have a green and gold die, which totally has that Lord of the Ring elvish script vibe, right? When it comes to Universes Beyond, a lot of the properties they pick don't really hit the same note for me that Lord of the Rings does, because I was a Lord of the Rings fan before I was a Magic the Gathering fan. So this is a home run as a concept for me. And speaking of a home run, take a look at this set of 6 cards that they are including in the pre-release kits. Now, you can't actually use these cards in the event. These are just extra includes like we saw with those commanders from the previous event. But the way that all of these come together to create this huge panoramic art is amazing. The flavor on all of this is just so absolutely inviting. The Hobbit party, the idea behind these halflings that are obsessed with just eating well, living a good life. You know what? Let's stay away from adventure. Let's stay away from craziness. But when they throw a party, they throw a party. And you have Gandalf there just using his magic in a recreational way. And you don't normally get to see of that like happen a lot when it comes to wizards, right? Normally I'm going to cast fire and lightning and thunder. But in this case, it's just pyrotechnics to entertain the villagers, which is a very fun concept, and the whole thing has a very homey and inviting feel. And take a look at Gandalf in this particular instance because he's got a way more friendly vibe than something we're going to take a look at later on in the video where he has way more presence and menace. But either way, this is a home run in my mind. Doing things like this where you can collect the different cards up individually, they look great, but all together, it looks astounding. This is what Magic should be doing, right? Now, the next thing I want to talk about are the 30th promos. So, we've seen some before. This is the newest batch that they're talking about here. You'll notice that there are 2 that are the big deal. We've got Japanese Tarmogoyf, and I will admit, I am confused as to why they chose to make it Japanese. But regardless, you have Japanese Tarmogoyf and the Glen Elendra Archmage. These are going to be the big chase promos, obviously because they're desirable cards, but also because Wizards of the Coast has stated that these will come out in far more limited numbers than the other promos that they are giving out for 30th. So the other 2 that you see on the screen, really obviously not nearly as exciting. There's going to be a lot more of those kicking around. Now, I also want to mention real quick, they're going to be doing a Lord of the Rings secret lair based on the 1978 animated Lord of the Rings movie. So if you're a fan of that old school look and everything, you're going to be able to get those cards. Now, they haven't shown us anything, so we still got to wait, but I am very curious to see what we're going to get. Now, we're going to dive into the actual spoilers, starting out with an absolutely bonkers card in the form of Forge Anew. This is so powerful. I like 1 white and 2 for an enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, return target equipment card from your graveyard to the battlefield. As long as it's your turn, you may activate equip abilities anytime you can cast an instant, And you may pay 0 rather than paying the equip cost of the first equip ability you activate during each of your turns. This is a lot of abilities slapped onto a card. The second 2 abilities, like the second and third ability I should say, are these static, while I'm in play you get these benefits, but it also has a come into play trigger, and it's an enchantment. So you can literally blink this thing back and forth, and every time you do, you're going to be able to gain the benefit of its come into play ability. However, obviously, that does require that you have a piece of equipment in your graveyard to get the full effect of it. But you don't even need that level for this card to be serious. The fact that you can move equipment around at instant speed is nutty. You may just be like, oh yeah, I can only do it on my turn. Yeah, in the middle of your attack, right after they've declared blockers, you can go, oh, so yeah, no, I'm just going to move this over to this guy here instead. Have fun getting quiet spiked. And it's like, oh no. And then the fact that you can do it for free once a turn too makes this, basically it turns combat math into a nightmare, right? You just go, oh, I've got to factor in every creature theoretically having any of these equipments at instant speed, especially when you can move it around for 0. This is powerhouse, right? And the artwork obviously very clearly shows a sword being reforged anew. Now, when it comes to the Lord of the Rings stuff, a lot of the different blades that I've seen in the artwork don't really feel like they match up to what I've read in the book. So half the time when I'm looking at them, I'm like, is this a legendary sword I'm supposed to know about? Or is this just normal sword artwork being renewed? I'm into Lord of the Rings. I read it a long time ago. I'm not like super into Lord of the Rings where I can name every quote from all the books and I'm really into the Silmarillion. Truth be told, I find the Silmarillion to be incredibly difficult to get into because it doesn't read like a story. It reads like a bunch of like chunks and addendum. You know what I mean? So it's an add-on kind of thing. But this card right here is super powerhouse. The next thing I want to talk about is totally exciting to me in particular. You may not find Fangord, this is a version of Treebeard, you might not find this exciting, but for me, 7 mana for this gigantic tree shepherd. He's 410. I love it. I love the tree folk concept of having an insanely high toughness, right? It harkens all the way back to the days of Ironroot tree folk. Now, what I'm about to say is going to sound insane, but it was 5 mana for a 3/5 with no abilities. And that 5 toughness actually felt significant. I feel like my bones are turning to dust as I say this. But tree folk had that kind of a vibe. You'd have a lot of creatures that had symmetrical power and toughness, or a lot of creatures that had like higher power, but not a lot of creatures that had higher toughness. And the whole idea of tree folk being these gigantic, sturdy beings, you know what? Like, you get a soldier or whatever, they're like 1/1 tokens. But tree folk are big 3/5s. It's like, bro, I can smash down 3 humans with my gigantic wooden arms, and it'll take 5 of you to take me down. It's always felt good. So this 410 feels so right. It feels like a tree that's been growing and growing and growing. But the Ents, they're not really like super combat warriors anyway. So giving them a lower power works on that vibe too. So this is a tree folk lord. And I've been playing tree folk deck since like the way back in the beginning days of Ironroot tree folk, Argothian tree folk, which are the same thing, 5 mana for a 3/5 that has like, I don't take damage from artifact creatures. Just awful. But I played decks around them. So seeing a tribal lord for the tree folk is exciting. Tree folk you control have vigilance. This makes perfect sense and is super obnoxious. Think about it. You have massive amounts of toughness, and now you just wander on in. Oh, by the way, I'm ready to block all the time as well, taking advantage of the huge toughness, because with a 4/10, you're going to be caught between the contrast of swinging in for 4 or holding back defensively. Now you don't got to worry about that. So whenever one or more tree folk you control attack, add twice that much green mana, and you don't lose unspent green mana as steps and phases end. Bro, this totally has the feeling of living tree folk helping you out, right? Normally you can draw mana from forests, that kind of a vibe. That's where I get my green mana. Well, this is a sentient aspect of it. They're in harmony with the land. They can draw the mana up as they go to battle, and they can keep the mana flowing so it doesn't disperse back out. Boom, gone, right? I love it. The flavor on that is awesome. The power level on it is awesome. Like, for me particularly, this is probably not going to be a big rare in the set, let's be real. But who cares? It's Mega Green good times. Now, let's take a look at the Store Championship promo. Saruman of many colors. A black, a blue, a white, and 3. Get you a 5/4 with ward where you have to discard an enchantment, instant, or sorcery. That is funky. You know, it says specific. You can't just pitch any card. You have to have an enchantment, instant, or sorcery. That ties into the whole fact that he is a mage and avatar wizard. I dig that. He's more canny and difficult to deal with. You need to use genuine magic, right? And he has the other ability. Whenever you cast your second spell each turn, each opponent mills 2 cards. When one or more cards are milled this way, exile target enchantment, instant, or sorcery card with equal or lesser mana value than that spell from an opponent's graveyard. Copy the exiled card. Yo, I'm just going to cast magic from your graveyard because I'm Saruman. Get wrecked. Speaking of getting wrecked, you've got to see this Gandalf. Gandalf, Friend of the Shire. This is a participation promo, and we've already seen this card spoiled before. It's hefty, right? 4 mana, 2/4 flash, lets you cast your sorcery spells as if they had flash, speeding up your magic, and whenever you get tempted by the ring, if you choose someone other than Gandalf, you get to draw a card. Not too shabby overall, but the artwork is absolutely amazing, right? Look at Gandalf towering there in his incredible impressiveness. He's got this gigantic, long flowing beard, standing there with this massive blade pierced down into the ground. And I love that, unlike a lot of wizards we see, Gandalf wields a full-on longsword, bro. Like in D&D, you're stuck with daggers and whatever. It makes sense as a concept to balance out the magic, but just being like, yo, no, that doesn't apply to me. I'm straight up an avatar wizard. I use a sword and magic because I'm Gandalf. I'm the best, bro. Like, it's such a good vibe. And look at the tiny little hobbits down there under him. It's just, this is such an imposing piece of artwork. I absolutely adore it. And I love that we get multiple versions of Gandalf as well. Like, you got Gandalf the White, right? And this is another one of these promos. I like that you get the different variations. So this one is your 2 white and 3 for a 4/5 flash. This one gives legendary and artifact spells you have flash. So it's pretty cool how the blue one does it for sorceries and the white one does it for artifacts and legends. So he feels like he's the same guy, but he's been changed by his journey when he returns as Gandalf the White. And if a legendary permanent or an artifact entering or leaving the battlefield causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. He's a pan-harmonicon. Like, it's absolutely insane, this card. And it's so cool. He looks so awesome. Not as awesome as he looks on the previous card we just looked at, but it's going to be pretty hard to top that. Now, I want to talk about another super flavorful card that features one of my favorite characters from Lord of the Rings, and that is Friendly Rivalry. 1 green and 1 red for an instant that says target creature you control and up to 1 other target legendary creature you control each deal damage equal to their power to target creature you don't control. This is a poster child for how confusing the wording of magic cards can get sometimes. So you go, okay, hold on. So target creature I control, and then up to 1 other creature I control, but he's legendary. They both combine their power and deal that to another creature I don't control. It feels a little bit weird when you think about the fact that the concept behind the card is supposed to be Legolas and Gimli together, and these guys are so much fun in the story, right? You have the elves who look down on the dwarves, you have the dwarves who look down on the elves. These two unlikely individuals become steadfast friends, and it is just the rivalry between them is a friendly rivalry where it's like, how many can you take down? The flavor text, 42, Master Legolas, as they're competing to see who can take down more of the enemy. So the idea behind this is really funky. And if you really want to make a stretch and try and make the flavor work from the concept of, well, one's legendary, one's non-legendary, you could take the kind of mentalities they have, right? Because Legolas feels like he's more self-aggrandizing and thinks he's super, super epic. And Gimli is like, yo, I'm a dwarf, so I'm better than you because you're an elf. But I don't know, he doesn't have that same sort of grandiosity on the same level. He's got his own ego in his own way that plays well with Legolas, but you could just kind of go, Gimli's the regular guy, Legolas is the legendary, but that's really, really stretching it to make the flavor work 100%. But I mean, I'm a sucker for these two together, shown amidst the enemy forces. Legolas has a really goofy look on his face, though, doesn't he? Every time I look at him, I'm like, Legolas, what's up with that face, man? It's pretty silly. But it made me super happy to see these two together on the card like this in a way that overall flavor makes sense, fits into the world of The Lord of the Rings, makes sense, all of it. So this has been a fun romp through a number of things that are going on with the new Lord of the Rings set. I know I'm going to be heading out to the pre-release now. For the next video, we're going to talk about all the problems that are surrounding the set, because there are a number of them, but I wanted to take a nice deep breath of fresh, fun time air and just enjoy some cardboard rectangles. So, thanks for coming by and hanging out with me. I'll be doing a live stream over on my other channel. If you want to come and hang out tonight, I'll be over there. Otherwise, I'll see y'all for the next video. Big shout out to my patrons. Thanks for being the best people on the planet.